Alright, I'm standing here in San Diego's Mission Hills neighborhood overlooking Old Town, the place where San Diego was founded, to talk about the impact of World War II on the city of San Diego. This is a good place to get an overview because outside, beyond us, is San Diego Harbor. We've got our June gloom at work here today and it's a little bit hazy out there, but you can see Point Loma, which is where the ocean begins, where San Diego Harbor begins. San Diego's got an enormous natural harbor. It became a base of operations for the United States Navy during the First World War, but with the Second World War, San Diego boomed. The city exploded in population. It became a center for the Marines, the Navy. There were a variety of Army bases here, and it became a center for aircraft production. Between 1940 and 1941, the city underwent what the Saturday Evening Post would call a blitz boom. It grew by about 100,000 people in the space of a year. It did so because of a bunch of institutions that we can see out here. We're going to get closer to some of those, but from here we can sort of see them laid out here. Just down below us, just past this tile roof, we can see a set of white buildings that are still there. That was aircraft manufacturing. Beyond it, the yellow and red buildings are the Marine Corps recruiting depot, where some 220,000 American Marines went through boot camp during World War II. Beyond that is Lindbergh Field, which is San Diego's airport today, but which was a center where there were additional aircraft manufacturing plants. Beyond that is the Naval Training Center, where Navy members underwent boot camp during World War II. Beyond that, out in the harbor, is where the Pacific Fleet is harbored off of Coronado, and where the Navy maintained during World War II its largest air base in the United States. San Diego was a center of wartime production. It was a center of military operations, and because of that, because of the Pacific War, the city boomed. Let's go take a closer look. I'm standing here in front of what was the city's largest aircraft manufacturing plant during the Second World War. This was part of the vast facilities for the Consolidated Aircraft Corporation, or Convair. Convair came to the city in the 1930s, but like much of the rest of the city, it boomed with the Second World War and the need to produce materials for that war. Convair became the city's largest employer, so that by 1941, nearly a third of wage earners in the city of San Diego were working here at Convair and in additional factories that Convair owned close by. Convair produced the B-24 Liberator bomber, which was a long-range bomber that was used by the United States in the Second World War. And they produced here in San Diego something like 6,000 or 7,000 of those bombers. By 1944, Convair had streamlined production to such an extent that they were producing 11 bombers a day, and they did that through each day of the first 8 months of 1944. So from this angle, we can imagine what San Diego might have looked like during the Second World War. This Pacific Highway here between Convair and the Marine Corps Depot, which is over here, would have been crowded with workers on change of shifts, with bars where those workers were getting a drink after work, with all kinds of activity. The arrival of literally tens of thousands of war workers and military personnel to the city during the war turned San Diego into a 24-hour town. The shifts here at Convair were on 24/7, and the city began to experience shortages. It experienced lines, it experienced traffic like it never had before. The city's sewer and water supplies were overwhelmed by the number of newcomers. The city's school system was overwhelmed. San Diego was completely transformed by the size and scale of the population boom and the economic boom that came with the war. Okay, so the arrival of all of those workers into San Diego in 1940 and 41 led to a tremendous housing crisis, just like it did in lots of other cities where there's lots of war production. The city's population doubled from 100,000 to 200,000, and all of those newcomers had almost no place to live. They lived in their cars and in tents. They stayed overnight in all-night theaters that showed movies all night long. They stayed in used trailers, used buses that were converted for use in chicken coops. So the housing situation was a disaster. In response, in order to keep the workforce on the job, the United States government paid for the construction of what would become the largest wartime housing project that was built in the United States in the Second World War. And that was right here in Linda Vista. The Kearney Mesa housing project begun construction in 1941. There were 3,000 total units constructed here in a matter of 300 days. So in order to do it, the federal government hired local builders who streamlined production, created kind of a mass production situation in housing, and here in Linda Vista and other places in the country, this streamlined process of housing production would have a big impact on post-war America when home builders would use the same kind of mass production techniques in housing to mass produce private family housing in the new suburbs. But here we are in the landscape of World War II era wartime housing that's still here, some 75 years or so later in the heart of Linda Vista. The impact of these institutions remained critical for the city of San Diego, not just during the war, but after the war. There's a few hundred workers that are employed here in what's now SPAWAR, which is part of the Navy's, I think, missile manufacturing and research facilities. But after the Second World War, San Diego continued to grow and continued to prosper on the basis of the high-tech industries and the military defense industries that were established here during the war. So Convair remained a critical part of the city's employment base, and aircraft manufacturing remained a critical piece in San Diego's post-war economic strategy in the Cold War years. San Diego was a quintessential Navy town, quintessential war town.